Okay, everyone. Now I'm going to have a guest on here. We've had her on here before. Gina Turcotte. She is the president and founder of the Maine Tenants Justice League, and she's here to talk to us tonight about tenants and roommates and a lot of good stuff. So, and also tiny houses, in case people don't know what that is. So, let me welcome Gina Turcotte. Hi, Gina. How are you tonight?
Hey, Rick, I'm doing great. Finally kicked the Sam in the butt, eh?
Well, you know, Sam sometimes is temperamental and has little fits, so we just have to learn to deal with it, I suppose.
I won't pretend that it's a man or a female. I'll beg to. I'll restrain my opinion on that one.
Well, you know, whenever you install it, it comes up with a green-eyed guy on the picture. So, you know, there you go. You know, maybe he's still running in that patriarchal mentality where he doesn't want to do what he thinks we want him to do. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of funny that it started giving you problems tonight after it's been behaving itself for a week or so.
Yes, especially with the new system. Yeah, I'm really surprised, but I mean, it went total lockout. I had to do a total reinstall. But well, that's neither here nor there. We're past that now. So, what's on your mind, Gina?
I don't think you want to know.
Oh, sure. We definitely want to know. We find you very interesting and very knowledgeable. So, you know, it's always a pleasure having you on here.
Well, you're one of the few who thinks that, because I'm causing hate and discontent everywhere I go lately. Which
Well,
means I'm doing my job properly, actually.
Yes, I'm definitely sure that that's not with the average Joe, so to speak. I'm sure that's with the powers that be.
Oh, definitely, and I'm causing the exact opposite with the tenants who call me, and I'm actually having a hard time personally because there's so few options for tenants out there, and I actually spoke with three tenants today who I'd never spoken with before, and each one of them had a different story, and each of them was a unique story, and I had no options for any of them. You know, they all of them talked about subsidized housing. All of them talked about having, you know, a limited income. Um, all of them talked about experiencing retaliatory eviction by the landlord because of the unsafe or illegal conditions of the building that they were living in. And none of them have options. And the only option that keeps coming back to me is tiny houses.
Yeah, now that's something that I've just recently heard about. So, do you know what the background is on those, or?
I don't know much of the background. I just discovered it myself recently, but the basic premise of a tiny house is it's portable, it's small enough so that it is exempted from building permit type restrictions and other type of restrictions. From what I'm seeing, a building that is less than a certain amount of square feet is exempt from certain types of building restrictions or regulations. And I'm not a builder, so I don't know what those are. But I was just reading tonight on a tiny house webpage that one of the benefits of building a tiny house is you get the mobility that comes with having an RV, or recreational vehicle or a mobile home. But like this website said, the mobile homes are not built to have weather tolerant construction materials. It's not built with weather tolerant construction materials because they're really built only for summer months type of weather. They're not built for like the Maine winters and the, you know, Northern California winters and the other places that have really serious winter weather.
Right.
And it also said that one of the benefits of a tiny house is just like it with any other house, if you can design it, you can build it. Okay. Um, and one of the things that people are doing, they are finding or purchasing car trailers, little 8-foot by 10-foot or other size car trailers, and they're building these tiny houses on the car trailer, and they're hooking the trailer to their car, and they're mobile, and they can go where they want to go. I'm not sure about what the traveling transportation restrictions are on pulling a load like that. You'd certainly have to, you know, look at those codes in your own town and state and whatnot. But these are the only options that I can think of to provide people with the safe housing that they need, the clean housing that they need, without being subject to a tyrannical, greedy, selfish landlord who doesn't care about you unless your money isn't coming in. And people who are chemically sensitive or people who want privacy or have any kind of difficulty interacting with, you know, neighbors and, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, you know, people who have those kinds of afflictions need privacy, and they need to not
Absolutely.
have to deal with, you know, the typical ignorance that we have in the world right now. It just exacerbates the problems that they already have. So I think tiny houses, you know, is at least a start. And with all the construction people out of work, and the tradespeople and engineering people and graphics design and people who work with civil engineering and blueprints and whatnot, if we could get those people together and come up with some kind of network where we can pull together scrap lumber, because the benefit of one of the benefits of the tiny house is that because they're so small, let's take a small house. I saw plans tonight for a 5 by 8. Now that's a really tiny house. It's 5 feet by 8 feet. That's one room, 5 feet by 8 feet. That's like the size of a bathroom. But for somebody on a limited income, somebody who only has a small car and can't pull too much, you know, if we can find someone who specializes in feng shui and designing and engineering a multi-function room within that, you know, 5 by 8 square foot room, we could make it functional. I mean, look at the Japanese and the Chinese. They have to live in these towers, these, you know, 400, however tall towers. And I've seen, I don't know if you've seen the video. There's one video out there from Japan or China where this gentleman lives in a 250 square foot apartment, and I think he was an engineer of some type, and he redesigned his apartment with moving walls in such a way that he actually designed 12, was it at least 12 different setups in that 250 square feet of space because of the
Wow,
moving
amazing.
walls and the built-in bookshelves and built-in cupboards and built-in, storage units and mirrors and all kinds of really cool stuff.
Very nice. Very nice. I put a few links up on the Awake chat line. Actually, one of them, which I did not see before, is called Tumbleweed Houses. And it's a company that makes small, under 500 square foot houses.
The only reservation I have about going with a company that actually specializes in that is, once again, they are buying into the commercial system. They're charging a monetary price for service, and that's something that we're trying to get away from. The Maine Tenants Justice League is focused on bartering, trading, taking care of each other, helping each other, providing free things when we can, and getting away from the "if you have the money, I'll give you what you need" mentality. Because that's what's gotten us into this mess, is that nothing has any value unless it looks like green paper.
Wow. Yeah, that's just amazing. And there's enough businesses out there that are lucrative businesses that have no worries about finances or things like that that could climb on board, I mean, see the heart inside yourself and climb on board and donate, be there, donate, lend a helping hand, send a crew of your men out and let them do something that is really worthwhile, and that is helping people that cannot help themselves.
One of the things I had a thought about tonight, Rick, and I'm gonna move on it when I pull all my thoughts together, is I went out to Craigslist under the services category, skilled trade, and I started looking at the ads that tradesmen are putting out there looking for work. And once I get some kind of a pitch ad type of, edit written, I'm going to go out and send emails to people and say, hey, are you interested in doing something worthwhile to help people? Or, are you just looking to earn some money? Because I want people on board who really want to help each other. Earning money, all right, yeah, money makes the world go round, but only because we created it that way.
Well, true, and it's not like you get a large business that has a multi-million-dollar income every year, and they are still going to pay these guys to come out and do what we want them to do. I
And
mean,
there's nobody,
it's just
and there's nobody saying that we're not going to pay what we can for the products and services and supplies that we're going to receive to build these houses. As a matter of fact, us poor people are probably the most diligent bill payers in the world. We have to be. We have to know how to pay our bills with very little money. We have to be able to take care of ourselves with very little money.
right.
It's the people who have money to throw around and throw in the trash can, who don't know how to pay their bills. They're the ones that are getting tax breaks. They're the ones who have all the tax liens on them. It's not the poor people who have tax liens. We'd be in jail.
Yes,
So
that's right. We would be.
yeah, we would be. So it's not like we don't want to pay for our housing. It's the fact that we cannot afford to pay what the rich people want us to pay, simply to line their own pocket.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all inflated. I mean, it's all in excess. I mean, and they enjoy living in excess and seeing us live in squalor. That's just the way it is, and that's all part of the greed factor. The greed factor that has taken over this entire planet.
And rooted in thoughtlessness. They have absolutely no thought for anybody else until and unless it benefits them. It's the only time they think of anybody else is when it benefits them somehow, or if it's going to hurt them. That's, if they have to fix something in order for them not to get in trouble, then they'll fix it. But as long as they're not going to get in trouble, it's fine. It's fine the way it is.
Oh, right. They don't like their own butt being in the fireplace, but they don't care about anybody else,
No,
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs that we live in.
no.
It
And
really
I
is.
talked with, yeah, I talked with one tenant tonight, and that was the call that you and I were listening to early before I went to supper, and she's a lady, 50, she says she's approaching 50, so she's probably 48 or 49. She has post-traumatic stress disorder, probably an anxiety disorder of type. She has a service dog that she has for companionship and staying connected to life. And she does not receive subsidized housing. She has an income of $1,040 a month, and out of that $1,040 a month, she pays $725 for her rent. She pays
Wow.
about three quarters of her income for just her rent, and that's not subsidized rent. That's full rent. The landlord where she lives, she said the building that she lives in has, I think she said 10 units in it. And out of those 10 units, she said there's a lot of people who have dogs. She does not know if the landlord charged them a security deposit for their animals, but they charged her $300 security deposit, even though the landlord knew and had paperwork proving that the dog is a service animal. And the law very clearly states that a landlord is prohibited from charging any kind of security deposit or any kind of fee for a service animal, and from preventing the tenant from having access to the service animal. And he additionally prevented her from having any kind of direct TV, even though he lives on the property in another building and he has direct TV. He said that no, she cannot have it. She said the water smells like mold. She said her dog's gotten sick every month since she's lived there and since March. Um, and she says she's been trying to find someone to talk to for the last 4 months, and nobody will talk with her. And I believe it. I absolutely believe it based on my own experiences. I don't know what the problem is with people right now, but the only people they'll listen to are those who will not back down. You have to call and call and call and call, and you have to be forceful. Otherwise, they just don't care anymore. I don't know what's happened to humanity, but I think they lost their heart.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we've all been, and not pinpointing people personally, but as a race, we've all been driven away from our true selves, which are people of love and compassion, spirits of love and compassion, and we've been groomed into this society of corporate greed and possessionism, and it's going to be something that's going to be hard to recover from. But we just have to look at it as positively as we possibly can and believe that we can change it.
I mean, within 15 minutes of talking to this lady on the phone this evening, she was in tears, thanking me, blessing me. God bless you. Thank you so much. I can't believe you're taking this time to talk with me. She says, I've called so many people over the last few months. She says, nobody would talk to me. She says, you're the first one who would talk to me. Why is that?
Wow.
I don't understand that. I mean, I'm flattered that you know, that I behave in a way that is a cut above, but that's just because that's who I am. I don't do that for any kind of special kudos or anything. That's just because that's who I am, you know? I don't
Sure.
understand what happened to humanity. Just don't get it. Why do they not have time for people anymore?
There's an old saying, that says it's not for us to wonder why, it is for us to do or die. And that is exactly what's going on right now. It is up to us to change it. We have to change the paradigm that we live in right now, or we are going down the proverbial tubes. to be really
I think
honest and frank about it.
I think we're already halfway down that tube, Rick, actually. I really do. I think we're slipping down and we're slipping faster and faster. And if we don't do something, we're going to lose our grip. And I'm not going down. I refuse to go down.
I do too. I do too. And of course, that's why we're here. That's why we're here at Awake Radio. That's why we're here at Shaziz Radio. That's why we are broadcasting around the world to get the message out to people that they don't have to take this anymore. Be peaceful. Be peaceful. No violence, but get it done.
Peaceful, truthful, factual, have clean hands. And if you make a mistake, if you don't have clean hands, be the first one to fess up. Do
That's
not
right.
let your mistakes bite you in the butt. If you make a mistake, you be the first one to fess up and say, I oopsed. I
Yes.
oopsed, and I'm sorry, and I'll fix it, and it will never happen again. But the only way to win in a corrupt system is to have clean hands, because then they have nothing to come back on you with.
That's right.
And
They can't say, well, we understand what you're doing, but this is what you were doing. And,
right,
we don't want to have that happen.
right, and that's the only reason I'm winning in all my court cases, because I have
Yes.
clean hands, and I have no guilt. I've done nothing wrong. I've committed no crime. I've committed no civil offense. I've done nothing that they can come back at me at.
No. And I mean, and they are trying really hard to walk over your rights. And, I know you, and I know that's not ever going to happen, but they are trying really hard. And for you not to be able to get the information that you were seeking through the Freedom of Information Act and to ignore that is paramount.
It's curious, really, how blatant the refusal was, because the law in Maine is very clear, and it's drafted. The Maine law is drafted from the federal law of freedom of information, and the law is very clear, and it says that in Maine, within 5 days of receiving the request, the agency must respond in writing acknowledging receipt of the request. And if the agency has any intention to deny the request, either in whole or in part, they have to indicate that denial within 5 days of the request. And if they don't have any intention of denying it, they either have to ask for a 10-day extension before the 20 days is up, or they have to provide the information in its entirety within 20 days of the date of the request. Well, I submitted the Freedom of Information request to the district attorney's office in my county, asking for contracts between the district attorney's office and any local municipalities or law enforcement agencies that allow for officers off duty to be compensated at time and a half, at overtime pay, for going out on their off-duty hours to issue traffic citations for the purpose of increasing revenue for the town, the district attorney, the state, and the officer who gives the citations. Well, the DA's office has not responded to my request. It's been more than 30 days since I sent it, and I had to file a lawsuit against the DA yesterday, with a request for an injunction to force them to provide the information. And we know why they don't want to provide the information, because they know that once this information gets out there, there's going to be a huge uproar.
Oh,
Huge
yes.
uproar.
Absolutely. And very well should be.
I mean, how can they justify paying officers to get into their police car off duty for the purpose, the one and only purpose, of issuing traffic citations to innocent people for some stupid violation, whether it be a seatbelt violation, an alleged speeding violation, or whatever kind of violation the cop wants to give you? Because if he wants to get 8 hours of overtime, Okay. And if he gets an hour and a half of overtime for each ticket he writes, then how many tickets does he need to write in order to earn 8 hours of overtime pay?
That's right. And
Okay.
you
What?
know,
Five
oh,
tickets?
yeah, I would say.
Okay. How quick can he write 5 tickets? On a busy day in any kind of town, he can place himself strategically somewhere and he can go boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my 8 hours of overtime in 15 minutes. Okay, an hour. We'll give him an hour on the road.
Well,
So,
the whole thing about it is, though, is that they're not doing it just for just for the money. They're doing it to keep themselves locked into the system, to be a good cog in the system, and they need to wake up too.
I don't understand when our world changed to be do what you're told. When is doing what you're told a good thing? When did the effects of the Nuremberg trial wear off? That doing what you're told is no longer is never an excuse for doing wrong.
Right?
I'm just doing what I'm told. Well, I'm sorry. You know, people have been court-martialed for that. Sorry. You have a duty. You have an individual human duty to take care of each other. And if you can't take care of each other, the least you can do is not hurt each other. You know,
Absolutely.
landlords, tenants, DAs, cops, courts, whoever. I don't care what your job is. We have a human duty to not hurt each other.
We
And if you
do,
can't,
and not only a duty. I mean, it's just it should be something that is natural for everyone because the vast majority of people are good, honest people. Good, honest, hardworking people that care about their family, care about their friends, care about the environment, and yet because of, I think, personally, this is my opinion, I think the media has everything to do with the zombification and the do as you're told philosophy.
I think it's time we walk like Egyptians. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Seriously, I think it's time we walk and talk like Egyptians. Take our country back.
Yes. But as I already said earlier, though, it's not going to happen through violence. It's not going to happen through argument. It's going to happen through peaceable action. It's going to happen through love and compassion. We are not going to be able to move towards a different type of society and a new paradigm if we keep clinging and holding on to old ideas.
I agree. And we cannot make the changes we want to make by using the old tactics that we complain about. I,
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen throughout history that that does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. It only feeds the fire.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, Rick, completely. When you fight fire with fire, all you create is a bigger, hotter, more destructive fire.
That's right.
And when I say walk like Egyptians, I don't mean the fury and the blood and gore that is happening or is allegedly happening over there. And even if it is happening, I don't necessarily believe that the Egyptian people are causing it. It may very well be caused by the government.
Oh, well, I would have to say, yeah,
You
definitely
know,
it's caused by the government and the powers that run the government.
right. I mean, just being in the streets and being loud is not necessarily being violent.
No. I mean, people want to be heard. And, I understand their frustration. And it's growing. It is growing around this planet. People are tired of being stepped on and tired of their rights being yanked out from underneath them, especially when they need them the most. I mean, it's time. It is time for people to look in the mirror and tell themselves that they believe in themselves, that they matter, their voice matters, their opinion matters, how they live their life and how they treat others is magnitudely important to how we can move forward. If we treat each other with disrespect, it's just going to remain the same. If we treat each other with disdain, it's just going to remain the same. It's time to change.
You know, one of the things I think needs to change, though, and I hesitate because up through the years, I've watched and heard people who file court complaints be chastised as, you know, people who like to sue. You're sue happy. Well, the sad part about our world is that in our world right now, my experience of it is that a lot of people will not do the right thing unless they're faced with court action forcing them to do that right thing that they should have done before the court action was instilled. And the only thing that forces them to do the right thing is the fact that there's a court action in place against them.
Yes, and then they feel like their back's against the wall.
That's right. And even then, when there's a court action, you still have to get a secondary court action and even possibly a third court action to enforce the court action that you instilled initially in order to get them to do the right thing that they were supposed to do without any court action. You know?
So, what kind of message would you like to send out to the tenants that are out there that are dealing with this daily?
Don't ever back down. There are rights. You have rights. The landlord is engaging in several different types of commercial activities, not limited to just landlord-tenant activities. And because a rental agreement is protected and governed by several different types of laws, a tenant has more rights and more remedies or solutions to discrimination and bad landlords than we've ever been told about. And one of the things that we need to learn to do is start recording, electronically recording either video, audio, or both, and on paper, every negative action that the landlord takes that violates our rights. Because if we don't record the factual evidence that it's happening, then it comes down to he said, she said. And the sad part about our world right now is that the courts, for some reason, are siding with landlords, and the laws are siding with landlords. And the only way that we tenants can protect ourselves is with evidence. And that evidence is best preserved in its most raw format, which has to be either audio or video or written communication in the landlord's name and his hand and voice. Because what we're trying to do is expose the landlord's unprovoked behaviors. We want him to behave naturally without any kind of, fear of, being recorded, so that we can prove that this is his pattern of behavior.
Down on the counter.
Okay.
Because there are other tenants out there who we know have been treated the exact same way that you're being treated.
Okay.
And when you have two people coming into a courtroom and making a complaint against one other person, and those two people are saying the exact same thing, they've, take for instance, you've got a building. Let's say John lived in the building for the year of 2011, and he moved out because the landlord went into his apartment when he was gone and went through his things. Okay, and there was no way to stop the landlord except to file a lawsuit, because that's just the way it is right now. You cannot do anything because the landlord has the upper hand. Now you can call the police, but highly likely the police are going to say this is a civil matter that you need to file a lawsuit about against your landlord. We can't do anything unless we catch him in the act. Okay, so John moves out after a year of dealing with this landlord, and he just moves out and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't file a lawsuit, he doesn't file a criminal complaint, he doesn't make any kind of public disclosure or any kind of public confession or admission or complaint or anything about this landlord's behaviors. So 2012, Mary moves in, and Mary has no idea that this landlord breaks and enters into his tenants' apartments. And she leaves for work and she comes home and she notices something odd about her stuff. Her stuff has been roughed through. Well, not only has the landlord broken and entered into her apartment and burglarized her apartment, but he's now violated her sense of safety.
Absolutely. Not to mention her personal space.
Not to mention her emotional health and her mental
Mm-hmm.
health. Okay?
Yes,
And
'cause that could be devastating to someone. I
I hate to
mean,
say this, but John, the tenant, is partially liable because he didn't say anything and he allowed Mary to move in there without making a complaint. Now, he's indirectly responsible, but he's still responsible because he moved out without making the proper complaints and without making the proper disclosures. And
right?
this is one of the things that we tenants have to stop doing to each other. We have to stop doing this to each other. When there's a bad landlord, when we experience a bad landlord, we need to make public notice somehow. Like one of the tenants I was just talking with today told me that she lived in a town that happens to be a town that my landlord owns buildings in. And so I told him my landlord's name, Ray Corporation. And I said, be aware, 786, area code 207-786-4999, Ray Corporation. That's the phone number. Don't rent from them because they rent illegal rooming houses. They take apartment buildings that are coded to be apartment buildings only, and they divide the apartments out, and they put locks on the bedroom doors, and they put doors on the living rooms and call them a bedroom, and they force people to live with rapists and domestic violence people, and they take your money, and then they kick you out when you complain. You know, this is the kind of crap that we're dealing with, and not just in the state of Maine or in the state of Georgia. I'm sure it's not just in the United States of communism either.
Right.
It's
I'm
all,
sure it's happening everywhere.
yeah.
And,
And
of course, the laws differ from country to country, of course, but
but the
still, there has to be something that
basic
they can
human
do for
rights are the
themselves.
same. Basic human rights
Yes.
are the same across the continent, across the continents. I'm sure it doesn't matter, you know, if you live in Africa or Great Britain or Canada or the United States or Mexico. You know, you have a basic human right to have a safe place to live, to have privacy, and to not be burglarized
Absolutely. Or intimidated.
or intimidated. Absolutely, it doesn't matter. You know, and this is the basic premise. The landlords, no matter if they're breaking and entering into your apartment with their key or not, they if they're evicting you because you complain, or if they're refusing to fix things, they're terrorizing you and they're intimidating you and they're violating your basic human right to have a safe place to live. And if they choose to do public commercial business with the public, then they have a responsibility to make sure that building is safe and it's not going to injure its tenants.
Absolutely.
And if he chooses not to uphold his responsibility, then he needs to step out of the market, either willingly or forcefully, and I'll take him out. And we need to do it together. We need to call them the real estate commissions in the states. Like I was just talking with code enforcement yesterday, and I asked him, I said, is your observation the same as mine about real estate agents? He says, what's that? And I said, I'm noticing that here in Augusta, Maine, some of the most well-known real estate agents are also some of the worst code violators and some of the most difficult landlords to get to fix their buildings. And he said, yeah, He said, that's my observation too. Now, one of the real estate agents here in town, Jim Pepin, is a licensed real estate broker. He sells buildings and he also owns rental buildings. He owns, how many was it that I said, Rick? Was it 26?
I believe you said 26, yes.
So 26 different rental buildings here in the city. And within those, a total of like 130 units within those 26 buildings. So we're talking no less than 130 individual people are subject to this man's lack of decency.
And if he's doubling up on those, I
Jim
mean,
Pepin doesn't. No, not Jim. Oh,
no,
what? Doubling
that's
up as
good.
far as couples? Yes, you're right. Double those. Right. 2 people in each one of those units. Right. So you're talking 52 people. No, 130, 260.
260 people, yes.
260 people are subject to this man lack of decency.
It's such a shame.
He doesn't care if bed bugs are running the building. He doesn't care if there are fleas through the building. He it's just absolutely incredible. It really is. Now, I don't remember. Do you remember watching? I don't remember the name of the movie, but it's with Danny DeVito, and it was he was a slumlord, and the court ordered him to live in his own building for 30 days. It's a comedy.
No.
It's a comedy.
No, I don't right offhand, sorry.
No? Oh my God. Well, let me go out and Google it. It's like it's the funniest thing, but that's exactly what we need to do. We need to force these landlords, to let's see that movie. Okay. What's the name of that movie? The Super. That's what.
Okay.
The Super. Yeah. Yeah. Joe Pesci and the. Oh, okay. It was not Danny DeVito. Excuse me. It was Joe Pesci. It was Joe Pesci, the Super. Pesci. Joe Pesci. Yeah.
Yes.
He was ordered by the judge. He was sentenced to live in one of his own buildings until it was brought up to code. That's right. I'm looking at
That's funny.
Yeah. The Super is a 1991 American comedy film starring Joe Pesci as a New York slumlord sentenced to live in one of his own buildings until it was brought up to code. Okay. Joe Pesci stars as Louis Kritsky, a heartless slumlord who was born into money thanks to his ruthless father, also a slumlord. However, the tables turn on Louis when he's threatened with prison for his failure to keep his New York slum to code. The judge gives him another option, which he accepts. He must live in one of his own shoddy, rundown apartment blocks until he brings it up to livable standards. At first, Louis is adamant that not one repair will be carried out and will wait until his father bails him out. However, he has a change of heart after meeting and getting to know the building's residents, etc., etc. It's a really good movie. It's
Sounds
funny.
like it.
It is. It's funny as all get out. But it's real, and something like that has to happen.
Yes,
that
definitely.
has to happen.
Yes, people need to learn to take the reins and control their lives and not let the lives be controlled.
My landlord.
Hey, Gina.
Is it almost time for a break?
Yeah, we will take a break here in a couple seconds here. We'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. We will come back with Gina Turcotte, who's the president and founder of the Maine Tennis Justice League, and you are listening to A Change of Perspective simulcast on Awake Radio and Shiziz Radio. Coming up, we will have, and then we will smile, an everlasting smile, and then we'll be back to talk with Gina some more. So enjoy, everyone.
Are you homeless? Do you live in dangerous or substandard housing? Do you know your housing rights? Do you have a negligent landlord? If you're a tenant or homeowner and need assistance with your housing situation, or want to learn about your rights as a tenant or homeowner, or need help with rental research, then you need the Maine Tenants Justice League, a nonprofit organization devoted to the principle that everyone has a basic human right to have safe, suitable shelter and to be treated fairly and respectfully. If you need assistance with your housing situation or want to create an alliance with the Maine Tenants Justice League, please call 207-747-3670. That's 207-747-3670, or send us an email at help@maintenants.org. Maine Tenants Justice League, reaping justice for Maine tenants.
When I wake up in the morning, I notice that my day goes the way the corners of my mouth turn. What I mean is, when I wake up and I've got a big smile on my face, I feel like I can go out there and conquer anything. I feel like any problem placed before me, any of life's little problems, I feel like I can overcome them through a little bit of laughter and a whole lot of smiling. And truly, to me, laughter and smiling are the world's greatest medicines. Dr. David H. Song of the University of Chicago Hospital teaches us that laughter and smiling create certain physiological effects on the body, such as reducing stress hormones, increasing the activity of our immune system, improving our body's circulatory system, and also helping ourselves relax, our muscles relax. These are all things that are overcome through laughing. Things like physical, mental, and emotional difficulties. When we laugh, we feel relaxed. And especially when we get one of those great big belly laughs. You know, the ones that Santa does. Ho, ho, ho. And all of a sudden, we just feel a little bit more relaxed. When you smile or when you laugh a belly laugh, you're actually able to use all 400 of your body's muscles. And if you can sustain that laugh for one whole hour, you'll burn over 500 calories. Now, these aren't the only positive effects of laughter and smiling. There's many others. For example, if you're walking down the street, if you're walking on campus, and you see somebody coming along with a great big smile, and they look up into your face, more often than not, your first reaction is going to be to smile right back. Dr. Neil Carlson, in his book Psychology and Behavior, teaches us and shows us that when we greet somebody with a smile, we stimulate within that other person the desire to be more socially active. I understand that is the desire to smile more. That's because when we sit, all that blockage that might keep the corners of our mouth down gets rid of it, and what happens? Now, some people might argue, and many people do, that physical exercise and therapy are alternative ways to be able to produce the same reactions, the same benefits. Although it is true that some of the same benefits can be produced through physical exercise and therapy, laughter and smiling create a physical chemical reaction within the body that physical exercise and therapy just cannot reproduce. Really, life's hard. But frowning isn't going to make it any easier, is it? If you think about it, you're in a situation. You got a group of people, and it's pretty confrontational. They're about to hit one another in the face over some tense situation, some question that they can't agree upon. And then some smart aleck in the corner decides to crack a joke. What happens? One person smiles, the other person laughs, and the problem dissipates and becomes completely disempowered. Isn't that beautiful? Truly, frowning leads to more frowning. So stop it as soon as you can. But smiling leads to more smiling. So smile that everlasting smile. And remember that your day goes the way the corners of your mouth turn.
Are you homeless? Do you know your housing rights? Do you have a negligent landlord? Do you live in substandard or dangerous housing? If you are a tenant or homeowner and need assistance with your housing situation, or want to learn about your rights as a renter or a homeowner, or need help with rental research, then you need the Maine Tenants Justice League, a nonprofit organization devoted to the principle that everyone has a basic human right to have safe, suitable housing and to be treated fairly and respectfully. If you need assistance with your housing situation or want to create an alliance with the Maine Tenants Justice League, please call 207-747-3670. That's 207-747-3670, or send us an email at help@maintenants.org. That's help@maintenants.org. Maine Tenants Justice League, reaping justice for Maine tenants. Welcome back, everyone. We're here talking with Gina Turcotte, president and founder of the Maine Tenants Justice League. And we're talking about lots of different things, about landlords, about tenants, about tiny houses. So what's next on the agenda, Gina?
Oh, God. Well, I guess tiny houses is probably where we should stay right now, simply because we're lacking for solutions. And the most crucial thing that we need to do is find solutions. We have people who are, at least here in Maine and on the Northeast and other parts of the country, have winter coming up. We have winter coming up really soon, and they have no place to live. We still have Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, people down in New York who I'm sure are still having difficulty down there. And let's not forget Hurricane Katrina and all the other survivors of natural disasters who have no homes. And
Right.
the people in Colorado who are dealing with floods, and they're going to have snow. They're going to have snow first because it's going to come in off the West Coast first. So
Absolutely.
we've got people, they need houses. They need places to live. And we need to find a solution, and we need to do it fast. And one of the tenants that I spoke with today, I spoke with 3 new tenants today. One of the tenants is a lady, actually they're all ladies. She has engineering blueprint design skills. And she actually probably is one of the people who has the ability to design her own tiny house, and she said she definitely would like to work with us, because I told her that we're always looking for volunteers, because it's a nonprofit, volunteer driven foundation. We're always looking for people of all kinds of skills, engineers, blueprint designers, tradespeople, graphic designers, web designers. She's also a social worker, so she's highly intelligent. She's got a college background. She's got experience with people, and the reason she contacted the Maine Tenants Justice League was because she recognized how seriously discriminatory her situation was. And her situation actually includes medical marijuana. And the landlord knew about the medical marijuana when they moved in. Apparently other people in the building also grow medical marijuana. And this person, this lady also had a dog. And in her lease, the landlord put a clause that referenced the amount of condensation in her unit. And I'm not sure exactly what it said because I haven't gotten a copy of her paperwork yet, but it indicated that the condensation level could not rise above a certain threshold. And if it did, then it was grounds for eviction. Well, evidently, this is the landlord who was entering her unit while she was gone. And when she came back, she noticed that things were, disturbed and whatnot. And um, he actually tried to evict her, and she went to court just this week. And she was smart enough to get the equipment that she needed to take her own condensation readings within her unit, and she compared those readings to the National Weather Service readings of the humidity level in her area to show that her humidity slash condensation was no higher or no more than the natural level in the environment. So she won her eviction this week. But this is the kind of behavior we've got going on. And that's intolerable, But the problem that I keep explaining to tenants, and I don't see any way to get around it, because the only viable option is essentially a violation of that landlord's right. And the right that's violating is his right to use his private property as he sees fit. Because the brass tacks of a landlord-tenant relationship is the landlord owns private property. He chooses of his own free will to open that property up and to let public people use it in exchange for a fee. Well, doing that subjects him to certain laws and certain rules and certain regulations, as long as he's providing a service for exchange of money or other type of consideration. Well, he also has the right to not do that anymore. If a building is shut down, like the building behind the building that I live in, Jim Pepin owns it, this real estate agent. It's vacant now because it really would cost as much, if not more, to fix the building as it would cost to tear it down and build a brand new one. And this is a 3-story building.
Oh boy.
That's how bad the building is. That's how bad a shape this building is in. And this is a real estate agent.
Yes, it makes you wonder how he could let it go to such disarray, and uh, all the bottom line for him was just money. It had to have been.
Absolutely it is. And not only that, but he targets low-income people, and he targets disabled people, just like my landlord. They target the low-income, disabled population because they think we don't know any better. And they think that we have no other options, and that we have to tolerate these conditions.
Once
And
again, making people, people live in fear. So, that they don't know what their rights are, and they don't know that, they can protect themselves. They don't know that. All they know is that they pay money to a person that owns where they live, and they feel like that person probably has rights over them, and it's not true.
no, that's true. And the the lady that I spoke with, um, who you were listening to, Carla, she claimed, she says that she has never been late on her rent. She moved in March. She says she's never been late on her rent. She has always paid her rent on time. She claims that she's never caused any kind of destruction. She says she's very clean. Um, she does have a dog, but she showed the landlord all the vet paperwork, service animal paperwork, everything that the landlord required to see. She showed it to him upon moving in, even though she didn't have to. The law in Maine, and I don't know about other states, but in Maine, about service animals, they treat service animals just like a bottle of pills. Okay. So if you were to move from one apartment to another apartment and you brought your medication with you, is there a law that tells you that you have to tell your landlord that you're bringing your bottle of pills with you? No. The same rule applies to service animals. And if you check with your Human Rights Commission in your states and your state housing authority about service animals, the question you want to ask is there any law that requires me to tell my landlord that I have a service animal before I sign the lease or before I move in? If the answer is no, there's no law that requires you to tell the landlord you have a service animal before you move in, then you don't have to tell the landlord you have a service animal. You don't have to make a word about it. You don't have to put it on your papers unless there's a line on the paper that says, do you have a service animal? And if the landlord tries to discriminate against you because you have a service animal, then you call your local Human Rights Commission and you make a complaint. But this lady was saying that even though she knows she's not ever been late, she knows she's not done anything wrong, and she knows there are serious problems with the building and the way that he's treating her, she knows she's being discriminated against. She knows this.
Yes.
She's afraid to say anything because she knows that if she gets evicted, she has no place to go. And the scary truth is the courts are colluding and not necessarily conspiring with, but I would not put it past them that they are conspiring with the landlords and the landlords' attorneys, to get these people out. For whatever reason, I don't know. But there is certainly a lot of, misbehavior going on, and a lot of tenants' rights are being trampled. I don't know if I sent you the recording or not, but I even stood up in Superior Court when Kelsey was in front of that Superior Court judge. I interrupted the proceedings. While the judge was talking, I interrupted the judge. I basically made him shut up, and I said, excuse me. I said, this is not right. I said, these tenants' rights are being trampled. I said, this court is trampling all over their rights. They're not being heard. They're not allowed to be given. They're not allowed to give evidence. They're not allowed to bring in witnesses. I said, the court is clouding the issue. I said, and there needs to be a record of it. I said, let it be known for the record that their rights are being trampled.
Absolutely.
And the judges, the judges are so mad at me right now that they've actually interfered with one of the people who we invited to become a board director. Up until I invited him to be a board director, he was, making some headway in the city, I guess, and being quite an advocate, and for some reason he's refused to get back to me and respond to my invitation to be a board director. And since he's an attorney at law and bar card attorney and allegiance to the British and all that kind of happy stuff, I believe that the judge in that area, because the judge that I interrupted was the same judge that he probably appears in court in front of, because it's the same county. So I'm sure he has interactions with all of the judges that I angered down there.
Sure.
I betcha they've told him, don't you dare do business with that Miss Turcotte. Don't you dare do any business with Maine Tenants Justice League if you want to have any kind of hope in winning anything in my court.
And that's extremely biased, though.
But we
And
know it happens. Of course it happens,
yes.
because it's all
Oh,
political.
absolutely. Yes, it's definitely political, and it's definitely financially driven.
I mean, I went into court yesterday to file a stack of paperwork, and I walk in the door, and lo and behold, there's my court-appointed assistant counsel for my criminal driving case. Now, the funny thing about him is I hired him, or I should say the court appointed him, back in June of 2012, Okay, so he's been my court-appointed assistant of counsel for well over a year, and going on 2 years now. And when I first met him, he told me, and this is funny, he told me, and I believe I'm even have it on recording, I believe, that my only hope of winning my driving case was to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
That's exactly what he said to me. He says, your only hope of beating this OAS is to appeal it to a higher court. He says, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. I say, that's fine. I'll do it if I have to.
Sure.
I said, but I don't think I'm going to have to. I said, you watch me. He says, Gina, he says, you're not going to win. You're not going to win, Gina. I said, well, you apparently don't know me very well, Hank. And so I walked into the courthouse yesterday, and he didn't say a peep to me. And it's funny because I'm proving him wrong. I've gotten my criminal case got a stay put on it, which is an indefinite suspension. Nothing is allowed to happen on my criminal case, and that's happened. That was put into place on April 23rd, I think it was. It was back in April. And I know for a fact nothing's allowed to happen because I tried to file paperwork against it after the stay was put in place, and the paperwork was rejected and sent back to me saying that nothing will be processed on the case until the stay is lifted. And the stay won't be lifted until I finish my ADC appeal, which is reviewing what they call final agency action, which is basically a decision by a state agency, injuring your rights somehow. And in this case, motor vehicle took away my driving license for an alleged medical issue, which is a bullshit excuse. And so because they took away my license for a medical issue, I challenged it and got in my car and operated my car, and they've trying to prosecute me for an operating after suspension. Well, I got the criminal case suspended, waited for a stay, because I can challenge the medical suspension. And so I have oral arguments coming up on that case on October 9th. And I had to push for that. I got a 57-page brief that the judge had to read, and I have a 25-page response brief that the judge had to read. And they had 5 pages to read from the motor vehicle AG. So it just, the judges don't like me because I speak the truth. It's sharp, it's clear, it's to the point. If it's black, it's black. If it's white, it's white. If I'm wrong, I'm not usually wrong. I am wrong sometimes, but I don't like to be wrong, so I try really hard to be factual. I hate being wrong. I hate being caught in a mistake. I don't like being looked at like a liar. I won't lie. And I won't allow myself to get caught in a lie. That's the worst thing in the world.
Oh
I mean,
my,
the only
yes.
thing we've got in the world is our word. The only thing we've got is our integrity. And the only thing that integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
Yes,
And if you do the right thing when nobody's watching, you've got nothing to be afraid of.
absolutely. We were talking about infringement on tenants' personal space and things like that. Now, would you recommend tenants to get a nanny cam or something like that? Is that submissible in court?
Absolutely. And, well, let me rephrase that and let me qualify that. Each state has their own laws about electronic recording private conversations. In the state of Maine, it's called a one-party state. And what that means is one party, one person in the recording must know that the recording is happening. So what that means is if you turn on a camera or an audio recording, bring it into somebody's home, leave it in their bathroom, walk out and go home, and then come back and get it later, that's an illegal recording, and that is a violation of someone's privacy.
Ah,
But if you put it in the bathroom, come out, and are in the kitchen, and are still within earshot of what happens in the bathroom, that in the state of Maine is legal because you were aware and you were there on the recording. Okay. But other states have different laws. Some states require that you tell the person that you're recording them before you record them. I don't know what each state law is, so you have to look it up. But with a nanny cam, I would suspect that in a case with a landlord, I would suspect that's great evidence to have, and you don't have to worry about the recording laws, because that is that could be submitted as evidence that when you had a suspicion that someone was entering your property, and because you had a suspicion and you needed evidence of that, you set up a nanny cam. And as a result of setting up the cam, you came up with this evidence. You did not provoke the landlord to do anything that he was not already doing. You just caught him doing it.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, but just
I
be
mean,
careful. Just look up what your laws are, if it's a one-party state or a two-party state. And that's why you hear all those, pre-recorded messages when you call these companies, these phone companies, utility companies, and all these other companies, because some states require that you're told that you could be audio recorded or video recorded. Yeah.
well,
And
and that can't be considered entrapment or anything, though.
no, entrapment, my understanding of entrapment is creating circumstances to cause a person to act in a way that they would not normally have acted. But if you're just simply catching somebody behaving naturally and normally without provoking them to act in that way, that's a completely different set of circumstances.
Well, I mean, the drug addict acts a way a drug addict is going to act, and they're going to go buy the drugs that they want to use the drugs, and they set up sting operations, and that's not considered entrapment. I mean, if it holds true that isn't a normal action by that person, but with a drug addict, I mean, you would have to consider that being a normal action, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. But you also have to take it within the context of each individual situation, too. Was the drug addict trying to kick the habit and the cop provoked the reuse? Did the cop provoke it through, repeated peer pressure of some sort? Because a reforming or a person who's recovering from an addiction is much more susceptible to pressure than someone who, regularly engages in it. So, it depends on what kind of pressure, but we're not talking about really drug addicts. We're talking about landlords who have money, who, knowingly use their key to open a door that they have accepted money for. I mean, when a landlord rents out, and that was what we were talking about before, is the landlord has, it's their private property, okay? And before they accept money for that private property, they can come and do with it whatever they want to do with it. And if they're not going to file insurance on it, and if there's no lien holders, they can even burn it to the ground if they want to. Okay, they can take their insurance off it and burn the bitch to the ground. But as soon as they accept money on that building and they put somebody into that building, it becomes a completely different type of relationship, and they've actually surrendered any kind of right to enter that space, except under very limited circumstances. And those circumstances require a 911 emergency phone call or 24 hours minimum written notice. And only if the tenant agrees to that 24-hour written notice. The
Yeah.
tenant doesn't have to agree. You can say no.
Yeah, I don't know how many people have been through this. I've personally been through it also, finding out that the landlord was in my apartment while I was gone, and
That's called criminal trespassing. And if he committed any kind of act that could be considered a crime of a felonious felony, felony nature, it could be called a burglary, because a burglary, my understanding is entering a dwelling space for the purpose of committing a crime. Now, he entered for the purpose of going through your things. Or, like in one of my cases, I had a landlord send his maintenance guy over to serve me with an eviction notice 48 hours after I reported a serious oil leak in the basement.
mm,
And this maintenance guy walked into my apartment. So be it was on the bottom floor, and I lived on the top floor, and we had stairs between us, but he still walked into my house. Well, he walked into my house for the purpose of serving me with an illegal eviction. That's called burglary.
huh. See,
But
a
we
lot
don't
of people don't know that.
that's right. And the only reason I know that is because I've had the benefit of working in several different types of law over the last 25 years. I've loved law. I've always been an advocate for the underdog. I've always rooted for the underdog. I've been an underdog. I'm still an underdog. You know, I'm still an underdog. I'm still growing my wings. And the fact that I don't have that green paper stuffed in my pockets makes me the underdog. Okay, fine. I'm not getting paid for what I do. Okay, fine. Whatever. I see that paper money doesn't make anybody happy. I know that what I do, and when I spoke with Carla tonight, you know, she was, and I'm not one, Rick, I'm not one to blow my own horn or anything like that,
No,
but
not at all.
it was really nice to hear that. I mean, within 15 minutes, she was in tears because, and I know how that feels. I absolutely know how that feels to be ignored and to be minimized and just completely discriminated against and patronized for what reason. She's difficult to talk with because she has an anxiety disorder. Okay, fine. I told her about medical marijuana. Girl, you need to chill.
Sure.
you know, she's got PTSD. Well, in the state of Maine, our legislature just added PTSD to the list of qualifying conditions for medical marijuana. So in 8 days, she can get medical marijuana. She can get a card and she can legally carry it, and she still has to buy it herself or get it somehow. Insurance ain't gonna help with that, but
No.
at least she won't get arrested for it.
Right. Right. And contrary to popular belief, uh, cannabis is a all around useful item for a lot of different health problems, anxiety, for depression, for
Sleep.
for sleep, yes, for even for simple things like an upset stomach, or uh, well, I said anxiety, and that's pretty much the same thing. But still, there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that they've been misled for so many years and had this persona of marijuana as this evil stepping stone that will take you towards cocaine and methamphetamine and ecstasy and all these other drugs, when it's just not true. That is not the reality of it. And I mean, cancer patients. Rick, Rick Simpson proved that a cannabis oil will help cure and will indeed cure cancer. Yet this stuff stays oppressed. They do not let this information out, although it is starting to surface now. Uh, uh, what is his name? Dr. Sanjay
Gupta.
Gupta, yes, Dr.
Yep.
Sanjay Gupta, who was not an advocate of marijuana for years and years, has totally changed his tune on the subject because he sees the scientific results.
And he was showcasing a little girl who was having, oh God,
Oh,
a
seizures.
thousand, was it a
Oh,
thousand seizures? Was it either a week or a month? It was
it
something
was a
insane.
week. It was a week. That girl was having over 100 seizures a day.
Yeah, okay.
That
Yeah.
was so sad.
And within minutes of taking her first oral dose of cannabis oil, her seizures went down to, what was it, one every 3 days
Yes.
within just the first dose. I don't even know how much it was. It was like, what, a dropper full or something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't very much. It wasn't
No.
very much, because they weren't quite sure how much to give a person. I mean, that's still something that is speculative. That's something we have to figure out, because everybody's different, and some people it may take more, some people it may take less. But I mean, she was just, that was a little girl. I mean, a toddler. That was so heartbreaking. But
I
it
think she's,
was,
what, 5 years old?
yeah. But
Yeah.
it was so refreshing to see that something like that, something that has been demonized for 50 some years, 60 some years now,
Now
that,
the type that now there's different types. Now
yes, this is
there's
true.
the what she was taking was what they call CBD, C as in cat, B as in boy, D as in dog, and that stands for, was it cannab
Cannabinoid.
cannabinoid? Okay,
Hmm.
and it's supposed to be a natural component that our body creates as well, and so there's cannabinoid, and that's something that's the substance that
Yes.
does not
Yeah, it doesn't get you
cause,
high. Does not
correct,
make
it
you
does,
high. It has a very, very low tetrahydrocannabinol
right,
level,
right, and
practically nil.
right, exactly. And this was um one of the reasons I think that they, had no problem giving it to her, because of, the lack of psychoactive effect that it was going to have on her. Because I know myself, I didn't use cannabis until the year 2000, and we won't go into that now, but I was an you know, anti-drugs. I didn't do alcohol, I didn't do pills, I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, I tried it in my teens, well, not my teens, but my early 20s, but it just didn't thrill me. And the only reason I tried weed was because the pills were killing me. I mean, they were absolutely killing me.
Pharmaceuticals
So,
you're talking about.
yeah, pharmaceuticals, doctor prescribed, not abused. As a matter of fact, I mean, I tried to use them exactly the way that I was supposed to use them, but even using them the way that I was supposed to use them, the last one that I was on was Abilify, and what they were treating me for was bipolar disorder. Well, I've come to decide, based on my own personal experience, my professional knowledge, and talking with other people who have the same energy. Bipolar disorder is simply the uncontrolled energy of very passionate people.
Yes.
It really truly is. Um, for me, it's all in my mind. It really is. It really is all in my head. And it's a matter of the thoughts and the ideas and the creativity that I have, and not having the human ability to manifest all of those thoughts, all of those ideas, all of these creative projects. You know, there's so much I want to do, and I can't do it all because I'm human. And the only reason I smoke well, not only, there's a few, I have back pain, but the biggest reason I smoke is it keeps me from climbing the walls.
Sure.
And before I started using it, I would pull a 48-hour day at least 3 or 4 times a month. So I would get up at 5 a.m., not go to sleep that night, go to work 8 hours, go to school for 4 hours, work all night on my paperwork, shower, go to work the next day, go to school that night, and then I would crash about midnight. Okay? So I would be awake almost 48 hours or a little bit more. And the only reason I would sleep was because I couldn't stay awake because my body was exhausted.
Yes.
My brain was rocking and rolling. But this brings us back to landlord-tenant issues. The lady whose apartment was being burglarized by her landlord has medical marijuana, and she feels that the only reason the landlord gave her an eviction notice was because he didn't want her plants in there. She had a few plants. Well, that's her right. That's her medicine. You know, same thing with service animals. A service animal is a form of medicine.
Yes.
You know, it's a non-toxic. It's an earthly remedy for depression. It's been proven that having a companion animal alleviates depression. It increases joy. I mean, petting a cat decreases heart rate. It decreases hypertension. It decreases the risk of a heart attack. There's all kinds of things that just having a cat lay on your lap could do for you.
Absolutely. I'm a very big advocate for loving animals and having total respect for them. I mean, they are better judges, especially dogs. Dogs are better judges of people than I think most people are.
Yep.
You know, they can sense things that we can't pick up, and they react on it. They react instinctually on it. And if somebody, I mean, I've met people over the years, and I've had a lot of different animals over the years. And I had a Doberman who was extremely good at it. I mean, he got a couple people that had come into my home with another friend of mine, and would stand them up against the wall. I mean, would not let them budge any further into my house. As soon as they come in the door, he was right in their face. I mean, he would not touch them, but I mean, he would snarl, he would drool, he would he would growl, and he would keep them at bay until I told him it was okay. But I totally trusted his instinct, and I was right a number of times, finding out later on that these people were nefarious, and we're not good people to have in my life. So I let my animals take the reins sometimes on picking the people that I let around me.
Oh, absolutely. Like with cats, a cat is a really good judge of character because a cat really, I don't know a cat would stay with a mean person, and I don't know of any mean person who can really love a cat. I mean, to have a cat requires that you are a highly evolved being in that you can attach yourself to a cat. And if you don't attach yourself to a cat, and if you have a cat, then you have a cat for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and cats are individualistic. They are very independent. They have no real necessity for us. But if they feel that you are a warm and loving person, they will stick by you.
Yep. I had some, all of my cats stick by me. I've had some ride across the country with me in my truck, two of them. But um, this is another reason why I think it's important that we get on this tiny house bandwagon because there's there's no there's no reason, first of all, why we cannot have our own homes,
This is
especially
true.
with all the resources that we have out there. And we have, you know, people have allergies. You know, people don't like animals. Okay, fine. They don't want animals in their buildings. Okay, you know, that's their right. But if that's how they feel, then we'll give them what they want, you know. And
Sure.
I would rather live in my own space that I designed myself and built to my own specifications and was able to be mobile rather than, you know, being subject to somebody else's um, whims and standards and having to pay rent for it and wondering where my money's going.
Yeah, and something else I'd definitely like to have you on here real soon again because I'd like to discuss about bottle houses with you, bottle homes. That that
Absolutely.
that is very very interesting. A great recycling idea. I mean, an extremely great recycling idea actually. And I would definitely like to go in depth with you on that really soon.
Especially these bottles that we're discovering have a high level of that chemical that leaches into the water. You know, those, you know, we're finding that the quote unquote spring water and the bottled water actually is no safer than tap water because of the type of plastic that it's bottled in. You
Ah,
know what I'm talking about, right?
I do know what you're talking about. It does. It's the name of the chemical isn't occurring to me right now, but
Yeah, me either. But we can, what I'm thinking of is because the bottles have that chemical in it, they're they're not suitable for drinkable water. And now that we know this, we need to find a use for that plastic.
yes. You know, I would love to just one of these days soon. I'm going to too. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make a list of things that are that seem to be ways of part of this population control, part of this Agenda 21 that's going on. And that in one small faction is one of the ways. They know that the chemical is in there. They know that the chemical is bad for you, yet they continue to do it because they say it costs less to produce. When actually I don't believe that to be true. I think glass actually is probably cheaper to produce. It
Yeah,
may,
and some and bringing that back to the landlord issue, and I can't connect, I cannot connect the mentality of the landlord to the depopulation agenda directly, but even though there's no obvious direct connection, um, it's still in line. I mean, the landlord. Let's think about this. The landlord has a building, and his ultimate goal eventually is either to keep it or to sell it. And if he sells it, he wants to at least sell it for as much as, if not more, than what he bought it for. Okay. So while he owns it, he wants to do something with it. Either he lives in it, or he doesn't, or he rents it out. Okay. And if he rents it out, then um, he wants to make sure that he can still sell it later on. Well, it makes sense. It would make sense to the logical, reasonable person that a landlord would keep his building up so that it maintained its value for his own benefit and that he could attract a higher quality tenant because of the higher quality building. And as a result of attracting a higher quality tenant, he could then justify um, attracting a higher rent market so he could reap more of a profit off that property while he owned it. Okay.
yes.
Now, yes, that would require him to fix things, but if he fixed things properly the first time and did not let things deteriorate, then there would not be many things to fix. And so his maintenance costs, and if he did it ecologically responsible and environmentally friendly, then, you know, it would be to his benefit as well as the benefit of the tenants, as well as the benefit of the community, and it would increase the sale value of his property when he decided to sell it. So, what in the world could be the thought process of these landlords for not keeping these buildings up to par? What could they be thinking?
Well, you're saying there you don't. It doesn't seem like there's a connection to the way
A direct
landlords
connection.
conduct themselves and to Agenda 21, but I think there is.
I was saying
And
direct connection.
yes, a
I
direct connection. Yes. Well, I think there could possibly be a direct connection. I think that they are quite possibly just as much of a pawn as the tenants themselves, because they're given the right to make an exorbitant amount of money to do very little, and this to an elitist is the holy grail. I mean, that's what they strive for. So other elitists teach these people and give these people the right to be able to buy a building, make their money back on it in short term, and from then on, all the rest is what they call gravy. And but what they're not seeing is they're contributing to the downfall of society in the process of this.
And then the question is, do they care?
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of landlords out there that do care, and a lot of landlords out there that do keep up on their buildings and do care about their tenants and try not to rake their tenants over the coals. But there are a lot that don't.
Well, take Bill, for instance. Okay. He's a good guy. He really is. I mean, he sounded really um aggressive and abrasive on the phone that night, but and yes, that's naturally who he is, but that's not how he naturally interacts. And I believe he's been pushed to that limit because, like he said, all of the rules, all the regulations, all the permit fees, all of the taxes, all of this, all of that, and and he's right.
Yes,
He's
that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's he is just another part of the handle of control. I mean, he doesn't realize it. I mean, he may now because of all of these things that he has to endure in order to just to be a landlord. And there are people out there who are just waiting to take advantage of somebody like that too. But he's extremely passionate about doing the right thing and being the upstanding person, you know. So, and I'm sure a lot of people think that, kindness is a fault. And I'm sure that's exactly what these people that have set up this type of society had looked for. They look for people that, you know, uh, are willing to go that extra mile for uh, for the people that are renting from them and stuff, and so they do slam them with the high taxes and all the extra fees and everything that they have to pay. So they're really they're probably breaking a little above even.
I don't I haven't figured it out yet, Rick, myself. I know I shake my head back and forth a lot trying
Yeah,
to understand, what these people could be thinking. Um, we've just scratched the surface. I
oh,
mean,
absolutely.
we really have, but it for any tenants out there who are having a problem with their landlord, there are certain basic elements that they have to provide, and if they're not providing it's called life safety codes, and if they're not providing life safety codes, then you really need to contact your local code enforcement officer. And if there are issues in the building that you feel are affecting your health or could be affecting your health, then contact your local public health officer also, who should be a person who is not the code enforcement officer. If you find that your public health officer is also the code enforcement officer, then you need to contact the Maine Tenants Justice League and give us a holler, because that's a serious conflict of interest that I'm
Absolutely.
dealing with up here in Maine. Yes, the public health officer needs to have a medical background, because they are making determinations about the public health. And if the person who is the public health officer does not have a medical background, obviously they are not competent to be that person. And if they're playing dual roles that are connected to each other, like such as a code enforcement officer who goes into a building, sees that there's mold in the building, acknowledges that mold causes health problems differently for each person based on their own immune system, which the code enforcement officer has no way to know is how it's going to affect the person. And if he chooses to dismiss the severity of the presence of mold as a code enforcement officer, then he is absolutely not going to act as a public health officer on behalf of the tenant because of the presence of mold.
Absolutely.
He's just not going to do it.
No.
And if that's the case in your town, then you need to contact your local town manager. Not that it's going to make any difference, but you still need to file a complaint with the town manager, because the town manager is responsible for the code enforcement officer. And you need to call your state CDC, Centers for Disease Control, Public Health Division, or Division of Public Health, and make a complaint. As well as contact the Maine Tenants Justice League, or you can go out to our webpage at maintenants.org, maintenants.org. Or you can send an email to help@maintenants.org and reach out, and if you need some help, let us know what you need for help, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to have you on here again, Gina. I greatly appreciate you being able to take your time and come here and throw some information at us. Definitely
I've got
appreciate
a
it.
lot more.
Oh yeah, I'd definitely like to have you on again really soon. Definitely really soon. There's definitely, we're just scratching the surface of a lot of things that we could discuss.
Yeah, and what we need especially is anybody, and it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter if you're in Maine or somewhere else, if you have design skills, if you're an engineer, if you're a graphic designer, if you have any skills at all to offer, then we would love to bring you on board and work with you. If you are interested in giving us a donation, you can send a PayPal donation to help@maintenants.org, and it is not tax deductible, but also we do not have to report who the donation comes from, so you can remain anonymous if you want to. So any help is really greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gina. It's been a real pleasure.
Rick. Thank you, Rick.
Well, have a good night, Gina, and we will talk to you again. Are you homeless? Do you know your housing rights? Do you have a negligent landlord? Do you live in substandard or dangerous housing? If you are a tenant or homeowner and need assistance with your housing situation, or want to learn about your rights as a renter or a homeowner, or need help with rental research, then you need the Maine Tenants Justice League, a nonprofit organization devoted to the principle that everyone has a basic human right to have safe, suitable housing and to be treated fairly and respectfully. If you need assistance with your housing situation or want to create an alliance with the Maine Tenants Justice League, please call 207-747-3670. That's 207-747-3670 or send us an email at help@maintenants.org. That's help@maintenants.org. Maine Tenants Justice League, reaping justice for Maine tenants.
Freedom, law, education, health, free energy, money, debt. Awake Radio, deconstructing the dream world, one lie at a time.
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? You know, for a second there, yeah, I kind of did.
你我的朋友从是追和平和爱的世界，我们可以一起做事情惊人。
Bonjour à vous mon ami de la pêche à Zis et de l'amour au monde ensemble, nous pouvons faire des choses stupéfiantes.
Hallo zu Ihnen, mein Freund vom Satz Frieden und Liebe zur Welt. Zusammen können wir erstaunliche Sachen machen.
Salve a voi, mio amico da Shazitz, pace e amore per il mondo. Insieme possiamo fare cose sorprendenti.
ハローバーイは世界を一緒に私たちは驚くべきことをすることができる。シャジス平和と愛からの私の友人に。 안녕 내 친구가 당신을 쉐지지에서 평화와 사랑과 세계를 우리는 놀라운 일을 할 수 있는 일.
Olá para você e meu amigo de paz chazis e amor ao mundo em conjunto. Podemos fazer coisas assombrosas. Здравствуйте к вам, мой друг от Хазис, с мира любви к миру. Вместе мы можем сделать удивительные вещи.
Hola a usted, mi amigo de paz, Shazis y amor al mundo. Juntos podemos hacer cosas asombrosas.
Hello to you, my friend from Shazis. Peace and love to the world. Together we can do amazing things.
Hello everybody, Shaziz here. Well, there's a lot more languages that in the world, and if I didn't put that in there, I apologize, but the message goes on throughout the entire world. Let's use our technology and our brains to come together as a people and make this world a better place for everybody. So I'm just spreading a little message to the world. Peace and love to everybody, and take care.